Hello and welcome or welcome back to my channel. My name is David Novak. For the last 2.5 years, or it will be 2.5 years next month, I have been devoting myself to trying to become a better reader. For the last year, or a little bit more than a year of that, I have been a BookTuber. Now, BookTube is a portion of YouTube in which people make videos and talk about what they have been reading. That's essentially it. There are other things that people do, such as make videos of books they buy, books they get rid of, just general themes, but it's all book related. So since I have been running this channel as a BookTube channel, a regular feature has been recent reads videos, and those are videos in which I talk about, say, the last 3 books that I have finished. I put them into a playlist, so if you want to have a tour through my entire last year's worth of reading, you can just click on the playlist and hear what I had to say. Now, these recent reads videos do not offer up reviews by any means, and just tend to give my feelings about the books. This one will be a little bit different in that I don't have any secure feelings about the 3 books that I finished in the most recent period. If you are interested in learning more about the reading that I've done in this 2.5 years, I did a separate video going through the entirety of my reading for the year 2022, and another one, the entirety of my reading for the year 2023. I ran into a bump in the road in April. I started reading a novel which did not sit well with me, and I wanted to continue with it and finish it. I got about 300 pages in. It was what is called a mammoth novel, meaning a very big novel. And I failed in the effort, and it marks the first book in this 2.5 years that I have DNF'd, which is a BookTube term for not finishing. So the first book in this period that I did not finish. And I had felt perhaps a kind of pride in that I was reading things through to completion. That was always a failure of my reading attempts in the past. I have been a reader in the past, but never a strong reader, unless I was particularly enthusiastic about a certain topic, say. So the books that I read, this may well just be a perfunctory nod to say that I did finish them. I finished The Rediscovery of America by Ned Blackhawk. It's probably one of just a handful of books that I've read about the Native American experience. And I think it has helped to shape my perceptions of American history. I am concurrently reading The History of the United States by Henry Adams, which covers the Jefferson and the Madison administrations. And I think that this book has made me aware of facets of the experience, the eventual domination of the settler colonists that have been traditionally overlooked by historians. Next year, I hope to follow up Henry Adams with a reading of Francis Parkman. And I want, regardless, to continue my reading of Native American authors, or indigenous authors, as I believe which is the term that Blackhawk prefers. I did not find the reading especially easy, and I resorted to a new technique for me. This is a library book, and I actually have this book checked out in triplicate right now from the Chicago Public Library. I often bemoan how lousy our library is, but in this case it served me magnificently well. I started with an ebook. I was in a queue behind probably 70 people, and it came available, and so I snapped it up. And I found that while reading it, my mind would become distracted. And another BookTuber recently talked about reading nonfiction on audiobook and following along with a print copy or a text copy, an ebook perhaps. And I went onto the library website and found that they did have an audiobook available for immediate download. And so I did that. And I read most of this book by listening to the audio at 1.25 speed and looking at the page. It helped me to focus, and focusing has been a long-standing problem for me as a reader. So that really helped me. In many cases, the library will not have a book or a text available in triplicate like that. So for another such book, I may have to come up with a different means of helping get myself through. The thing is, as you are trying to become a better reader, you have to figure out what strategies will help you through the gate, so to speak, what will help you along that course. And it worked well for me. I, in the end, decided to pick up this book at the library because I was due to go there. I wanted to pick up this, which I heard about, and I don't think I'm going to read this at this time, but I heard about its existence and I wanted to look at it to make a decision whether I would read it or not. And I may talk about that briefly in a moment. But I chanced to look online and saw that this book was not only available in the system, but was available at my branch. And so I hurried up and put a hold on the book, and so both items came in at one time, thereby necessitating no extra trip to pick this up. And I wanted to look at this firsthand because I just wanted to get a sense of the book. I found all of the maps and illustrations a little bit hard to look at in the ebook form. I think I would have been better having taken this one up at the beginning. I initially wanted to go with an ebook just because you can get an ebook without having to take a trip to the library. And in the course of listening to the audiobook, I noticed that footnotes were never mentioned. And the book does have footnotes, and of course the ebook would enable you to click on the footnote in a link, and I found that helpful. But I would be skeptical about using an audiobook for a text like this unless I have a hard copy of or an e-copy, a text copy at hand to correlate with. Actually, even if I'm using an ebook, I like to have a physical copy at hand, just because some of the ebooks that I've read have had problems, let me say, textual problems. And it's very nice to be able to refer to a print copy just to find out exactly what is right. So that is the story with this. The second book which I finished during this period was the well-regarded History of Ancient Iraq by George Roux. And I started this one, well, it took me 3 months to complete, with about a month or maybe 3-week hiatus in April when all of my reading fell apart. And because of that interruption, I have no clear sweep of what the text contains. I haven't read anything about the ancient Near East. I think that's what it's called. The political, I'm still not clear on the terminologies, but regardless, this area, ancient Iraq, around the Tigris and Euphrates, and the relations of the ancient peoples of that area with their neighbors. I am a complete blank slate as regards to that, except for such readings as I have done about ancient Egypt, perhaps. And so this book really amounted to merely a getting my feet wet. In January, I think it was, I read the Hittites by O.R. Gurney, another ancient people. And so there was mention of them here. And I feel that I simply need to build up my familiarity with the region. Most of what I read since coming back from that hiatus was about the Assyrians. And so I feel I have a bit of a grasp on who they were. And I look forward to touching upon them again in the future. And the third book that I finished was my fiction entry or entree, the Saga of the Volsungs, which has been part of a BookTube-wide event called Sagalong, and I thought I would tag along with Sagalong, so to speak. I did not participate in any of the Discord talks, but since finishing this, I am trying to catch up on the videos done by other booktubers about this book. I had avoided them until now. And this is my introduction to Saga literature. One of my commenters, actually, Justin at Triumphal Reads or Reading, said something in a comment, which is that these sagas or saga literature has been underrated, and I must plead guilty. I have never given much thought to them. And this has raised a whole question in my mind about my own literary prejudices. This was my first saga, and I know that I am predisposed to the side of civilization as opposed to barbarism. And I am using the ancient distinction which was created etymologically, at least, by the ancient Greeks. And there are a lot of problems with that bifurcation, that ideological bifurcation. But I know that I have this prejudice. And so, for example, given a choice between Dante or Virgil, the Epic of Either Man, and Homer, I would go with Dante or Virgil because there is a greater refinement there, as opposed to Homer, which seems a little bit more rough cut. And these sagas, though of a later time, really bear the rough cut aspect, which I dislike in literature. Now, I should, as a side note, mention that I am also, or was previously to trying to become a better reader, a writer of poetry. And the attainment of that kind of at least surface smoothness, which I've come to love in more contemporary literature, I say as opposed to ancient literature, is not arrived at by any easy means. It's not an easy task to do that, and I myself have never been particularly successful. So I like something that is beyond my grasp. Were I given the choice between Keats and Blake as a poet, I would probably choose Keats just because his verse seems to me the pinnacle of refinement. There are a lot of virtues to Blake, and his verse is in every respect as good as that of Keats. The best of each is at the top of English literature. But my personal predisposition is for that greater silken fluidity, that mellifluicity, if that's the right word, of Keats. And so this kind of thing that's a big jumble and a big mess does not, on the face of it, appeal to me. I never gave a thought to this type of literature. I am sure that in the past, if I saw a Saga book, a Penguin prints a lot of them, in the bookstore, I would have just turned my nose up at it. So this is my first foray into the genre, my first dipping of the toe. And while I found the narrative itself to be a hodgepodge and a mess, a lot of the imagery is of the sort of primordial type that I suspect may have seared itself into my consciousness. You have, of course, cases of mothers killing their children, all kinds of murders and deaths, and of course the main preoccupation of just about every character in the book is trying to get and hold on to gold. So it's not my cup of tea by any means, and I don't intend particularly to continue, but my curiosity has been piqued, and I may well next year come Sagalong time, tag along again. I've recently started, for my Historathon read, the Middle Ages, and of course, the Middle Ages has been an area that I have not studied at all. Again, going back to my prejudice, which was I started studying history with ancient history, and not any ancient history, but the classical period of Greece, so classical Athens. And after that, I went a little bit into Rome, and it's only been in very recent times, actually since reading Gibbon, The Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire, about 2 years ago or a year and a half ago, that I have started to branch out. So last year I read Stephen Runciman on the Crusades, which are in this period. And Runciman was talking about the events in Jerusalem and in Acre, and all these knights were being sent from Europe, and I had no sense at all what was going on back in Europe. This book, for the first time, I have a sense now of what is meant by the Holy Roman Empire. I never understood the relationship, why the emperor had to be crowned where he was, and so forth. But I have had a prejudice to that because, of course, the medieval period represents the rise of the barbarians. We are all barbarians, and I lost my thought there. It happens. We are all barbarians, but my prejudice has, regardless, inclined me towards classical Greece and classical Rome, despite there being numerous negative aspects to each of those periods. However, the literature produced both in Greece and in Rome shines above probably much of what was produced in the Middle Ages. So I was contemplating whether to show you this. I read this a long time ago, and it is a book which depends on, well, I didn't finish it. I got to page 244, and maybe I will get there, but it talks a lot about sagas and other epics of the time, and you had to have a greater familiarity with the milieu and the literature, and finally I gave up on the book. I DNF'd it. Possibly if I pursue this course of study and do a little bit more reading in the literature of the times, I will be able to get back to that book. So I have reported the 3 books that I've finished since my last Recent Reads video, and I had best leave off there. Thank you for stopping by my channel.